In July 1952, the United States witnessed what became known as the Washington Flap, or the Invasion of Washington, a series of unidentified flying object (UFO) sightings that buzzed restricted airspace over the White House and the U.S. Capitol. Events: July 19th. At 11:40 p.m., an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport spotted 7 objects on radar. Controllers at Andrews Air Force Base confirmed the same blips. Witnesses described them as orange balls of fire or white, tailless lights moving at speeds exceeding 7,000 miles per hour. July 26th. The objects returned, with radar detecting targets in every sector. F-94 Starfire jets were scrambled to intercept. Pilot William Patterson reported being surrounded by 4 white glows that zipped away when he attempted to close in. July 29th. Held a historic news conference to address the public frenzy, attributing the radar echoes to temperature inversions, a weather phenomenon where warm air layers bend radar signals. Explanations: the Air Force claimed radar was picking up ground objects due to atmospheric conditions. Radar operators and specialists, like Lieutenant John Holcomb, argued the returns were too good and solid to be weather-related, insisting they were tracking physical, metallic objects. This 1953 CIA-sponsored committee concluded that UFO reports were not a direct threat but recommended a policy of public debunking to prevent mass hysteria and national security panic. Antonio Villas-Boas, 1934 to 1991. Was a Brazilian farmer whose 1957 experience is considered one of the first and most detailed alien abduction claims in history. Encounter: the incident occurred on October 16, 1957, while Villas-Boas was plowing a field at night on his family farm in Minas Gerais. He observed a large egg-shaped object with a rotating red light that landed nearby on 3 metallic legs. When he attempted to flee on his tractor, the engine died. He was then captured by 4 5-foot-tall humanoids wearing gray overalls and helmets. Once inside the craft, Villas-Boas reported being stripped naked and rubbed with a thick gel. Alien beings took a blood sample from his chin. He claimed he was left alone in a room filled with a sickening gas until an attractive female humanoid entered. She had long platinum blonde hair, blue cat-like eyes, and red pubic hair. The two reportedly engaged in sexual intercourse. After the encounter, the female pointed to her belly and then toward the sky, which he interpreted as her intent to raise their hybrid child in space. Following the incident, Villas-Boas suffered from nausea, headaches, and skin lesions. A doctor, Olavo Fontes, later diagnosed these as symptoms consistent. Cultural impact: while the 1961 Betty and Barney Hill case gained more immediate worldwide fame, Villas-Boas's account predated it and established many standard abduction tropes, such as medical exams and reproductive focus. Betty and Barney Hill abduction UFO. The Betty and Barney Hill incident is considered the first widely publicized case of alleged alien abduction in the United States. Rural New Hampshire, specifically around Franconia Notch and Indian Head on U.S. Route 3. While driving home to Portsmouth from a vacation in Canada, the couple noticed a bright, craft-like object in the sky that appeared to follow their car. Barney observed the craft through binoculars and claimed to see 8 to 11 humanoid figures dressed in glossy black uniforms peering out of its windows. Terrified, he ran back to the car and they sped away. As they drove, they heard rhythmic beeping or buzzing sounds and felt a tingling sensation. When they reached home, they realized they had 2 hours of missing time and were 35 miles further along their route than they could explain. Evidence: the couple discovered shiny concentric circles on their car's trunk. Betty's dress was torn and stained with a pinkish powder, and Barney's binocular strap was severed. In 1964, psychiatrist Dr. Benjamin Simon performed regressive hypnosis on the couple. Both recounted being taken aboard a craft and subjected to medical examinations by small gray beings with large eyes. The star map: under hypnosis, Betty drew a star map she claimed was shown to her by the leader. Years later, amateur astronomer Marjorie Fish interpreted this as the Zeta Reticuli star system, leading the case to be known as the Zeta Reticuli incident. Their story was popularized by John G. Fuller's 1966 book The Interrupted Journey and the 1975 television film The UFO Incident, starring James Earl Jones and Estelle Parsons. Elizabeth Clarer, 1910 to 1994. Was a South African woman famous for her claims of contact and romantic involvement with an extraterrestrial from the Alpha Centauri star system. Incident timeline: Clarer claimed her first UFO sightings occurred in 1917 and 1937 in the Drakensberg region of South Africa. Her most famous series of incidents began on April 7, 1956. On a farm near Mui River known as Flying Saucer Hill. She claimed to have met a space pilot named Akon, who allegedly took her aboard a scout craft. Clarer asserted that in 1957, she was taken to Akon's home planet, Meta, orbiting Proxima Centauri. She claimed she stayed there for 4 months, became pregnant by Akon, and gave birth to a son named Ailing, whom she had to leave behind because the planet's magnetic field was unsuitable for her long-term health. Born in 1910 to a wealthy family, Clarer grew up fascinated by the Zulu folklore told to her by the family's native African workers, and she was especially intrigued by the stories of sky gods going up into the sky and vowing to someday return. After reading some books by alien contactee George Adamski in the early 1950s, Clarer apparently remembered some UFO sightings she experienced during her childhood. On 2 separate occasions, she saw a giant flying disc in the sky. After the second sighting, a ball of light floated into her house. In the mid-1950s, Clarer spotted more UFOs and reported that she was in telepathic contact with a pilot named Akon. Akon and his co-pilot, both of whom were astrophysicists, eventually let Clarer board their spaceship. They told her that they came from Meta, a planet in the galaxy of Alpha Centauri. Clarer became friends with the aliens, and they continued making visits to her. The most famous mass sighting at the Fiorentina Stadium, Stadio Artemio Franchi, occurred on October 27, 1954. During a friendly reserve match between Fiorentina and local rivals Pistoiese, the game was halted when multiple unidentified flying objects, UFOs, appeared in the sky, witnessed by approximately 10,000 spectators, players, and officials. Incident: UST after halftime, spectators began pointing at the sky, causing the match to stop and the stadium to fall silent. Witnesses described seeing objects shaped like Cuban cigars, eggs, or glowing spheres moving at high speeds before abruptly stopping over the stadium. As the objects drifted away, a sticky, thread-like substance dubbed angel hair or Bombagia silicia fell from the sky and covered the stadium and surrounding city. This substance reportedly dissolved or evaporated quickly upon contact. Samples collected by a student were analyzed at the University of Florence. The analysis found the substance contained boron, silicon, calcium, and magnesium. Many witnesses, including legendary player Artico Magnini, believed the objects were otherworldly spacecraft. Skeptics, such as astronomer James McGaha, suggest the angel hair was actually silk from mass-migrating spiders that balloon in the atmosphere. Critics of the spider theory point out that the chemical elements found, boron and silicon, are not typically associated with spider silk. Flatwoods Monster. The Flatwoods Monster, also known as Braxy or the Braxton County Monster, is an iconic West Virginia cryptid first reported on September 12, 1952. The legend began when a group of local boys saw a bright object described as a shooting star or fireball streak across the sky and land on a nearby hilltop in Flatwoods. The group, which included Kathleen May and National Guard member Eugene Lemon, hiked to the site and reported encountering a terrifying figure. Height, roughly 10 to 12 feet tall. Appearance, a glowing red face, bright orange eyes, and a head shaped like the ace of spades. Clothing, a dark, metallic dress or green pleated skirt that hung in folds below the waist. Behavior, the creature emitted a high-pitched hissing sound and glided toward the group before they fled in terror. Meteors, investigators later confirmed that a bright meteor was visible over 3 states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, that night, likely explaining the fireball. The owl theory. Many skeptics and investigators, including Joe Nickel, suggest the monster was actually a barn owl perched in a tree. Its reflective eyes and the silhouette of its wings could have been distorted by the group's flashlight and height from the hillside. Physical symptoms. Some witnesses reported nausea and throat irritation for days after the encounter. While some linked this to a strange mist or mustard gas smell, others attributed it to mass hysteria. Several witnesses experienced nausea and throat irritation, which some suggested were symptoms of exposure to a toxic gas or, conversely, intense fear-induced hysteria. While widely regarded as a UFO-related event, skeptics and investigators suggested the witnesses saw a barn owl perched in a tree against a backdrop of a meteor, which caused a trick of light and shadow. Gordon Cooper, a Mercury 7 astronaut, reported multiple UFO encounters, most notably in 1957 at Edwards Air Force Base, where he stated a saucer-shaped craft landed and was filmed by his crew before the footage was taken by officials. He also cited a 1951 sighting over Germany and alleged a government cover-up, although some colleagues doubted his accounts. Gordon Cooper UFO incidents. While flying an F-86 Sabre, Cooper reported seeing unconventional, fast-moving metallic saucer-shaped objects. A film crew setting up landing gear on a dry lake bed recorded a metallic saucer landing, filming it, and then taking off. Cooper, who was base captain, claimed the film was confiscated by a Washington, D.C. official and never seen again. Reports surfaced that Cooper observed a greenish, glowing object approaching his capsule during his final orbit, which was allegedly tracked by a Muchia, Australia, radar station. However, some sources, including his own statements in some interviews, disputed or clarified this specific, immediate spaceflight encounter event. The crew described a silent, metallic disk that extended 3 landing legs, hovered, and then landed about 50 yards away. Crew captured the event on high-quality motion picture film. Cooper claimed he personally viewed the negatives and saw a clear image of the craft before he was ordered to send the film to the Pentagon in a locked courier pouch. The Lakenheath Bentwaters Incident, August 13 to 14, 1956, is widely regarded by military experts and researchers as one of the most credible UFO cases in history due to simultaneous radar tracking and visual sightings by both ground and air personnel. Radar operators at RAF Bentwaters detected a target moving at speeds exceeding 4,000 miles per hour, approximate 6,400 kilometers per hour, far beyond the capabilities of any aircraft in 1956. Multiple objects were seen performing impossible maneuvers, such as traveling in formation and then merging into a single larger object. While this US-funded study generally dismissed UFOs, it singled out this case, stating that the probability of a genuine UFO was fairly high because natural explanations, like meteor showers or radar glitches, were highly unlikely given the data. The official U.S. Air Force investigation classified the event but was criticized for its confusing and often contradictory documentation of the night's events. The Leveland UFO case occurred on the night of November 2 to 3, 1957, in and around Leveland, Texas. It is considered one of the most significant, close encounters of the second kind, due to the high number of independent witnesses and reported physical effects on machinery. Incident timeline. The encounter involved at least 15 independent reports over approximately 3 hours, many of which shared nearly identical details. First report, farmhands Pedro Salcedo and Joe Salas reported a 200-foot-long, cigar-shaped object with a blue flash. Their truck's engine stalled and its lights failed as the object passed. 10:50 p.m. Recurring pattern. Another motorist, Jim Wheeler, reported a 200-foot-long glowing object blocking the road. His car engine and lights died, only restarting after the object rose and disappeared. 12 a.m. Multiple others, including farmer Frank Williams and Ronald Martin, reported similar vehicle failures near glowing, egg-shaped crafts. 1:30 a.m. Even Sheriff Weir Clem and the local fire chief witnessed mysterious red lights in the sky. Electromagnetic interference. The case is famous because the UFOs reportedly caused car engines to stall and headlights to go out when in close proximity, only for the vehicles to function normally once the object left. Object appearance. Witnesses consistently described the objects as egg-shaped, rocket-like, or cigar-shaped, glowing with a yellow, white, or reddish light. The Lonnie Zamora incident is one of the most credible and well-documented UFO sightings in history, occurring on April 24, 1964, near Socorro, New Mexico. Encounter: while chasing a speeding car, Sergeant Lonnie Zamora heard a roar and saw a flame in the sky. Investigating a possible dynamite explosion, he discovered a shiny, white, egg-shaped craft standing on four legs in an arroyo. Zamora briefly observed two small figures in white coveralls standing near the object. As he approached, the object emitted a loud roar and a blue/orange flame, rose vertically, and flew away silently at high speed. Investigators found burned vegetation and four deep, V-shaped landing impressions at the site. The figures: near the object, Zamora witnessed two figures in white coveralls, which he initially thought were children, but later deemed to be small adults. Physical evidence: investigating authorities found scorched bushes, indentations in the ground, and burned, smoldering soil at the site. Theories: while some investigators suspected a secret lunar lander test, others proposed a hoax by students. The Lubbock Lights incident of 1951 is one of the most famous and well-documented mass UFO sightings in U.S. history, involving hundreds of witnesses including high-level scientists and capturing national attention through Life magazine. While the sightings spanned late August and September 1951, the most critical events included: the backbone of the case began when three Texas Technological College, now Texas Tech, professors A. G. Oberg, W. L. Ducker, and W. I. Robinson observed 15 to 30 bluish-green lights flying in a V formation. Theories: plover. The official conclusion was that the lights were actually migrating birds, specifically plovers or ducks, reflecting the light from Lubbock's newly installed mercury vapor street lamps. Witness rebuttal. Many witnesses, including the professors, rejected the bird theory. They argued the lights moved at speeds far exceeding any bird, estimated at over 600 miles per hour, and maintained a rigid, geometric formation. Hard photographs. Analysis by the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Laboratory could not prove the photos were a hoax, but also could not definitively prove they were genuine. Ruppelt later wrote that while he felt the professor's sightings might be explainable, the overall case remained an unknown. Mariana UFO film. The Mariana UFO film refers to one of the earliest and most famous pieces of motion picture footage showing unidentified flying objects. Captured on August 15, 1950, in Great Falls, Montana, the 16mm color film shows two bright, disc-shaped objects flying across the sky. The witness. The footage was shot by Nick Mariana, the general manager of the Great Falls Electrics minor league baseball team, while inspecting the empty Legion Stadium with his secretary, Virginia Ronig. Mariana spotted two silvery, rotating objects. He ran to his car to retrieve his camera and recorded approximately 16 seconds of footage. The U.S. Air Force initially attributed the sighting to reflections from two F-94 jet fighters, though they later retracted and then re-endorsed this claim. Subsequent independent analyses, including one by Dr. Robert M. L. Baker in 1955, argued the objects were moving faster than jets of that era. Mariana famously claimed that the Air Force removed the first 30 frames of his film, which he asserted clearly showed the objects as spinning discs with a notched rim. Marius Duilde, 1921 to 1996, was a French railway worker who became a central figure in ufology after reporting a close encounter with extraterrestrials on September 10, 1954, in Quarable, France. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Duilde was reading in his home near a railway crossing when his dog began barking. Upon investigating with a flashlight, he claimed to see two small creatures, less than a meter tall, wearing diving suit helmets and bulky silver outfits. Craft, a dark, elongated object, often described as a cigar or saucer, sitting on the railway tracks. When he attempted to approach the beings, a blinding beam of light from the craft supposedly paralyzed him until the object took off. Evidence: investigators reportedly found deep indentations on the wooden railway sleepers where the object had allegedly landed, suggesting a weight of several tons. This event was part of a major wave of UFO sightings in France that year, leading some towns, like Châteauneuf-du-Pape, to pass humorous anti-UFO laws. On May 20, 1957, Milton Torres, a U.S. Air Force pilot based at RAF Manston in Kent, England, was ordered to intercept and fire upon a massive unidentified flying object, UFO. The incident remained classified for over 50 years until it was revealed in Ministry of Defense files released in 2008. The encounter. Then 25-year-old Lieutenant Torres was scrambled in his F-86D Sabre and ordered to fly at full gait, maximum power, to intercept a target over East Anglia. The pilot, Milton Torres, now 77 and living in Miami, said it spent periods motionless in the sky before reaching estimated speeds of more than 7,600 miles per hour, 12,000 kilometers per hour. Torres described how he scrambled his F-86D Sabre jet in calm weather from the Royal Air Force Base at Manston, Kent in May 1957. I was only a lieutenant and very much aware of the gravity of the situation. I felt very much like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest, he said. The order came to fire a salvo of rockets at the UFO. The authentication was valid and I selected 24 rockets. I had a lock-on that had the proportions of a flying aircraft carrier, he added. The larger the airplane, the easier the lock-on. This blip almost locked itself. At the last moment, the object disappeared from the radar screen and the high-speed chase was called off. While thick cloud cover prevented a visual sighting, Torres tracked a massive blip on his radar that he described as having the proportions of a flying aircraft carrier. Just as Torres was seconds from firing, the object accelerated at an incredible speed estimated at nearly 10,000 mph and vanished from the radar. Upon returning to base, Torres was reportedly visited by a man in civilian clothes who warned him that the incident was highly classified and that he must never discuss it. On July 14, 1952, two highly experienced Pan American Airways pilots, Captain William B. Nash and First Officer William H. Fortenberry, reported a high-speed encounter with unidentified objects over the Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. Encounter. While flying a DC-4 at 8,000 feet, the pilots spotted 6 crimson glowing dots approaching at high speed. As the objects neared, they resolved into reddish-orange discs, roughly 100 feet in diameter and 15 feet thick, with sharp edges. The objects flew in a tight stepped echelon formation. When they reached the aircraft's position, they flipped on their edges, performed a rapid reversal of order. The last 5 slid past the leader, and were joined by 2 more objects from below. Speed. The lights blinked out and reappeared before the group accelerated westward at an estimated 6,000 to 12,000 miles per hour, climbing in a 45-degree arc. The entire event lasted only 12 to 15 seconds. Investigation. The pilots were interviewed separately by intelligence agents in Miami. They described the maneuver as a loosened-up formation, indicating intelligent control. Explanations. Skeptics and researchers like Donald Menzel suggested the lights could have been caused by atmospheric distortion of ground lights, or even fireflies trapped between cockpit window panes. Another theory, proposed by Stoyart Campbell, was that the objects were a mirage of the planet Venus. The case remains notable because it was observed by experienced, trained, commercial airline pilots who were able to provide detailed, corroborated accounts of the object's behavior. In June 1965, during the Gemini 4 mission, astronaut James McDivitt reported seeing an unidentified object, becoming one of the most well-known astronaut UFO sightings. The sighting. Observation. McDivitt observed a white, cylindrical object with a long arm or pole extending from its side while orbiting over the Pacific Ocean. Duration. The object appeared to be in free flight at a higher altitude than the Gemini capsule. McDivitt attempted to photograph and film the object, but the resulting images were blurred. Theory. McDivitt initially speculated that the object might be an unmanned satellite or a spent rocket stage. Controversy. While sometimes suggested to be the Pegasus satellite, reports indicate the satellite was over 1,200 miles away at the time. The Solway Firth spaceman incident refers to a famous 1964 photograph that appears to show a figure in a spacesuit standing behind a young girl. The incident. The photographer, Jim Templeton, a firefighter and local historian from Carlisle, England. May 3, 1964, at Bergmarsh overlooking the Solway Firth in Cumbria. Subject. Templeton's 5-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, who was posing for a casual family photo. The mystery. Templeton insisted no one else was present except for his wife, Annie, and 2 elderly women in a car far away. He only noticed the spaceman after the film was developed by Kodak. The wife theory. Modern analysts, including journalist David Clark, conclude the figure is likely Templeton's wife, Annie. The pose. She was likely standing with her back to the camera. The suit. Her pale blue dress appeared white due to overexposure. The viewfinder. The camera used, a Zeiss Icon Conta, only showed about 70% of the actual frame in the viewfinder, making it easy to miss someone on the edge of the shot. Templeton claimed that technicians at the Woomera test range in Australia aborted a Blue Streak missile launch after seeing 2 similar spacemen on the range. However, Ministry of Defense files show no photographic evidence of this sighting. Men in Black. Templeton alleged he was later visited by 2 men in black who insisted the figure was just a person, though researchers remain skeptical of this encounter. In 2014, journalist David Clark explained that the figure was almost certainly Templeton's wife, Annie, who was with them. She was wearing a light blue dress that appeared white due to high, overexposed camera settings, and she was standing further back on the marsh. On the morning of July 1, 1965, a French lavender farmer named Maurice Massé reported a close encounter that has since become a cornerstone of European ufology. Encounter: Massé was working his fields near Valensole, France, when he heard a shrill whistling sound. He initially thought a helicopter had made an illegal landing and went to investigate. The craft, instead of a helicopter, he found a metallic, oval-shaped object, often described as rugby ball or spherical-shaped, resting on 4 landing legs. The beings, 2 small humanoid figures, roughly 1.3 meters tall with oversized heads and slanted black eyes, were crouched near the craft, seemingly studying the lavender plants. Paralysis: as Massé approached within 30 meters, one of the beings pointed a cylindrical, pencil-like device at him. Massé was immediately paralyzed, unable to move but remaining fully conscious while the beings entered the craft and silently flew away. Soil damage: the landing site featured a deep hole and a central indentation where a support pillar had rested. The surrounding soil became abnormally hard, resembling concrete. Biological impact: lavender plants at the landing site withered and reportedly never grew back in that specific spot for several years. Soil samples revealed abnormally high levels of calcium, and the Gipan, CNEs, later documented the case as one of the most credible unexplained sightings in France. Evidence: a landing site with a deep, hardened hole was discovered, along with unusual soil, which researchers later analyzed for, and found, anomalies. On the night of January 29, 1952, American military personnel reported a significant dual-location UFO sighting over the North Korean cities of Wonsan and Suncheon during the height of the Korean War. At approximately midnight, a U.S. Air Force B-29 Superfortress was flying at 20,000 feet near Wonsan. 2 crew members, the rear gunner and the waist fire control man, spotted a bright, orange, globe-shaped object. The object was estimated to be about 3 feet in diameter and occasionally emitted blue flames similar to a gas stove. It maintained pace with the bomber, which was traveling at 200 miles per hour, for at least 5 minutes. Simultaneously, a second B-29 from a different squadron, flying nearly 100 miles away over Suncheon, reported a similar lighted orange sphere following them for about a minute.